Hello students, welcome back to our Target Prelims 2026 Revision with MCQ series, and this is a new episode of Current Affairs. So we'll discuss 10 questions, and these questions will help you revise your current affairs before your prelims exam of 2026. So let's start with the first question for today. Consider the following statements with regard to Global Forest Resources Assessment 2025. 1. The world's forest area is about 1/3 of the global land surface, amounting to roughly 0.5 hectares per person. 2. India accounts for nearly 2% of the world's total forest area. 3. Africa holds the largest share of the world's forest area, followed by Europe. Which of the statements given above are correct? A. 1 and 2 only, B. 2 and 3 only, C. 1 and 3 only, or D. 1, 2 and 3. Please take a few moments, attempt this question first, and then we'll come back to the explanation. Okay, so this is about a report which is the Global Forest Resources Assessment Report of 2025. So this ranked countries based on their total forest area, net forest gain and everything. So this gave a good ranking to India. We are now in the top 10. We are at the 9th position when it comes to the total forest area. Total forest area, India is in the top 10. We are at the 9th position. Then we are even in the top 3, like we are on the 3rd position when it comes to the net gain in forest area. So our forest area has also been expanding. We are at the 3rd position, and then we are at the 5th position as a carbon sink. Globally, we are the 5th largest carbon sink. So these are some achievements when it comes to India's forest cover. Now, if we talk about the total forest area on Earth, then roughly 1/3 of it, 1/3 of all the land on the Earth is covered by forests. Some 33% of all the land on Earth is covered by forests. Now, if we talk about this distribution also, the distribution is definitely not uniform. Here we will see that Europe, out of this 1/3 also, 25% lies with Europe alone. Okay, 25% lies with Europe. So Europe has the largest number of forests, or the maximum forest share of the world's total forests. And if we talk about this distribution country-wise, so most of the forests, more than half, in fact more than half, some 54% of the total forest cover is concentrated only in 5 countries. 5 countries, which are Russia, Brazil, US, Canada and China. So this is not in any order, it's not a ranking, but it's just to tell you that all the forests of the world, like 50%, more than 50% of the forests of the world are concentrated in these 5 countries only. So we don't have India in the top 5 countries. However, according to this report, we are at the 9th position. We're not in the top 5, we are at the 9th position when it comes to the total forest area. And this share is 2%. 2% of the world's forests are found in India, and 25% of the world's forests are found in Europe. Okay, after Europe we have South America. So continent wise, we first have Europe and then South America. So now let's see what the statements say. The world's forest area is about 1/3 of the global land surface, amounting to roughly 0.5 hectares per person. Yes, this statement is correct. It is 1/3 of the land, I already told you. And on an average per person, this comes out to be 0.5 hectares per person. Okay, India accounts for nearly 2% of the world's total forest area. Correct. Africa holds the largest share of the world's forest area, followed by Europe. No, we just saw Europe holds the largest share, followed by South America. So the correct answer is option A, 1 and 2 only. So the PDF of this will be provided to you on our Telegram channel. You can go back and read the explanation. Now moving on to the second question. The term flying rivers associated with the Amazon region refers to which of the following? A. Vast atmospheric streams transporting moisture generated mainly from Amazonian transpiration. B. Large subterranean channels carrying groundwater across the South American continent. C. Broad seasonal watercourses formed by extreme rainfall across the Amazon lowlands. Or D. Extensive high altitude wind corridors originating from the Andes and moving towards the Atlantic. Please attempt this question. Okay, so there is a term, that term is flying rivers, and this term is associated with the vast atmospheric streams transporting moisture generated mainly from the Amazonian transpiration. So over the Amazon basin, we see a lot of water vapor that is basically flowing like a river. It's not exactly flowing, but it's moving. A huge amount of water vapor is present over the Amazon basin, and we see it moving because of the presence of trade winds. Correct? These water vapors are going to come under the influence of trade winds, and then they start moving, they start flowing. So it appears like a flowing river, like a flying river. Okay, so this is nothing, it's actually a huge amount of water vapor that is found over the Amazon basin, which is seen flowing under the influence of trade winds. And how is this water vapor forming to such huge extent? So because of two reasons. First, because of the moisture from the Atlantic. Moisture is being picked up from the Atlantic Ocean, it is rising up, it is forming these water vapors. One is that reason. And the second and the most important reason over here is the transpiration that we find in the Amazon basin. Transpiration is what? Transpiration is actually the release of all these water vapors from the plants. So this there are a lot of it's a green cover Amazon basin. It has a lot of trees and forests and everything. So from there, a lot of transpiration is going to happen. A lot of water vapor is going to be generated from the plants, and it is going to be released in the atmosphere. So this transpiration loss happens in the water in the plants, and this actually takes the form of vapors. So water lost in the form of vapors from plants is transpiration. So we see a lot of transpiration happening over the Amazon basin. That's why we have such amount of water vapors. And then these water vapors, they start flowing under the influence of, or they start moving under the influence of trade winds. That is why they appear like flying rivers. Okay, and they are very important for the health of the entire ecosystem because they are flowing and they're also carrying moisture with them. So wherever they are going to descend, they'll give rise to rainfall. So that rainfall is going to help in agriculture, in farming, in cooling the temperature down. So these are very important events of climate, like global climate events. So the health of Amazon basin becomes extremely important for us, for its own ecosystem and also for the ecosystem in the nearby regions. Okay, that's why it's extremely important that Amazon basin is in great health. Now let's move on to the third question. The recently tested Poseidon system is best described as A. A hypersonic air-launched cruise missile with intercontinental range. B. A nuclear-powered, nuclear-capable underwater drone. C. A space-based early warning satellite for ballistic missile detection. Or D. A submarine-launched anti-ship missile powered by solid fuel. Please attempt this question. Okay, so we are talking about the Poseidon system of Russia. Now what is this? This is actually an underwater drone. Okay, it's an underwater drone. It can go as deep as 1 kilometer, in fact more than 1 kilometer underwater, and it can have a high speed. It can operate at a very high speed of some 130 kilometers per hour as well, all underwater. But it is especially important because of the characteristics that it has, that it is nuclear powered and nuclear capable. This underwater drone is actually nuclear powered and nuclear capable. Nuclear powered meaning that it is basically running on these nuclear reactors, energy that is being generated by the nuclear reactors. And it is also nuclear capable. It can also carry warheads whenever required. So this is a great deterrence capability that this underwater drone has, that it can be used at the time of need, whenever Russia needs to, counter the enemies that it has. In that case, it can make use of this underwater drone. Because it is underwater, because it runs deep, and because it has a huge speed, it can operate at a very high speed. So it becomes very difficult for the sonar also to detect this. So that's why it can be used in such operations of Russia, and that's why it was in news, because it is nuclear powered and it is nuclear capable, and this is an underwater drone. Okay. Okay, so the Commonwealth Games have been in the news lately because India is all set to host the 100th edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030, and this will happen at Ahmedabad. So in 1930, we saw the first edition of Commonwealth Games, and that happened at Hamilton, Canada. Now please note that at that time it was not called the Commonwealth Games. Then what was it called? It was called the British Empire Games. 1930, this was called the British Empire Games. Then in 1954, it was renamed as British Empire and the Commonwealth Games. And finally, from 1978 onwards, we see this to be the Commonwealth Games. 1978 onwards, this has been the Commonwealth Games, and in 2030, India will host the 100th edition of this Commonwealth Games. This will happen at Ahmedabad. Now, is this the first time that India is hosting the Commonwealth Games? No, this is not the first time. We have hosted it once more in 2010, and that time it happened at New Delhi, right? Now in 2026, so these games, they happen every 4 years. In fact, they are also known as friendly games. Now the next one is supposed to happen in 2026 in Glasgow. Now this 2026 edition is going to be one of the most watered down edition. Watered down edition meaning that it is going to be very small in scale, in size, and the number of events or sports that are going to be played, because we want to cut down on the expenses, on the infrastructure, on the logistics, on the operations, because it gets very expensive for the host country to organize such a global level event. So 2026 is going to be one of the most watered down events, where, let's say, in general, if in the Commonwealth Games there were some 15-20 events or sports that were being featured, in this one there may be some 10 sports or 10 events that will be the most essential and the most core sports that are going to be played. So only 10 will be played, somewhere around 10 sports will be played at the 2026 edition. Okay, so let's look at the statements. India is set to host the centenary edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030 at Ahmedabad. Absolutely correct. And 2, the 2026 Commonwealth Games will feature a record number of more than 30 sports as part of its program. No, this statement is not correct, because I just told you that this one is going to be one of the most watered down edition of Commonwealth Games. So the correct answer would be option A, 1 only. Moving on to question number 5. Consider the following statements about the Bharat Taxi Initiative. 1. It is run by the Sahakar Taxi Cooperative Limited. 2. It has been developed under the Union Ministry of Cooperation and the National E-Governance Division to provide government supervised taxi service where drivers retain full ownership of their earnings. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. So please attempt this question first. Okay, so the Bharat Taxi Initiative was in news recently because it is India's first cooperative taxi service. It is India's first cooperative taxi service, where unlike the other private players that we have, unlike the Ola, Uber, Rapido private players that we have, these drivers, they actually are going to be drivers at the Bharat Taxi Initiative are actually going to be the members or owners of this cooperative setup, because it's what? It's a cooperative taxi service. What happens in the cooperative setup? The drivers are actually the owners, the drivers themselves are members, and here the platform is not going to take up commission per ride, like unlike Ola, Uber, where the platform, like the platform of Ola and Uber, they take commissions per ride and then drivers are paid only a little amount of that or a designated amount, and some part of it goes as commission to the platform. Whereas this is not going to happen in the case of this taxi initiative, in the Bharat Taxi Initiative. This will be a cooperative initiative. Here the drivers are going to be the owners, they are going to be the members, and they will not be paying commission per ride to the platform. In fact, they'll be paying a membership fee. They'll simply be paying a membership fee, a one-time membership fee to the platform, and post that all the rides, whatever money they make, whatever profit they make is going to be their own. They are not going to pay any commission because that's how a cooperative model will work. Okay, so it has been developed by the Union Ministry of Cooperation and the National E-Governance Division. So this is actually to give drivers, a more transparent, a fair mechanism where they can decide on the price, where they can keep their hard-earned savings, they can keep their profit, and they don't have to keep on paying commission every time to the private players. That's why the government stepped in over here and this cooperative model was created. Cooperative taxi service was created. So it is run by Sahakar Taxi Cooperative Limited. Yes, this statement is correct because it is India's first cooperative taxi service, and it has been developed under the Union Ministry of Cooperation and National E-Governance Division to provide government supervised taxi service. It is a government supervised taxi service. It is run by this cooperative limited, Sahakar Taxi Cooperative Limited, where drivers retain full ownership of their earnings, because that is the goal of this cooperative setup. Okay, so both the statements over here are correct. So the correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Moving on to question number 6. The Chola Gangam Lake, a 1,000-year-old reservoir located near Gangaikonda Cholapuram in Tamil Nadu, was originally constructed by which of the following rulers? A. Kulutunga Chola I, B. Rajaraja Chola I, C. Rajendra Chola I, or D. Vikrama Chola. So, pardon me, these names could also have different pronunciation, but please attempt this question first. Okay, so this Chola Gangam Lake, it's actually a liquid pillar of victory. Liquid pillar of victory. Whose victory? Rajendra Chola I. So Rajendra Chola I led a Ganga expedition to the north, okay, a military campaign to the north, and there he defeated many rulers, the prominent ones being Mahipal I of the Pala dynasty, Bengal, right? and some other rulers as well. And when he came back to Tamil Nadu, this lake was created because he carried with him the sacred water of river Ganga. So that's why this lake was created. This lake was actually a liquid pillar of victory because it was created by the sacred water that he carried from Ganga as a mark of his victory, as a symbolic gesture that he has now defeated the northern rulers. And please understand that this was only an expedition. It was not, he did not go and occupy North India. He simply demonstrated his power. It was more like a military raid where power was demonstrated, that they had the capacity to actually defeat North Indian rulers also. And from there he carried, Rajendra Chola I, he carried Ganga water and he created a lake near Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and that lake was the Chola Gangam lake, and which is now 1000 year old. So this is a liquid pillar of victory of Rajendra Chola I. Okay. Question number 7. Consider the following statements. 1. Namibia will adopt India's Unified Payments Interface System under an agreement between National Payments Corporation of India and the Bank of Namibia. 2. Namibia joined the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure and the Global Biofuels Alliance. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question. Done? So our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, visited Namibia last year, and there some important MOUs were signed, agreements were signed, like MOUs on health and medicine were also signed, some important announcements were made. So Namibia has said that it is going to adopt India's UPI system by the end of this year. So this is going to be adopted under an agreement that was made between NPCI and the Bank of Namibia. So Namibia will be the next nation now who will be adopting India's UPI system. Okay, so this statement is correct. Then Namibia also joined some India-led initiatives like the CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, where we are focusing on building climate resilient infrastructure, and Global Biofuels Alliance. This is also India-led, which focuses on what? It focuses on bioenergy. So this is showing increasing cooperation between India and Africa, particularly India and Namibia. So this is basically, a strengthening of our ties between India and Africa, bilateral ties of India and Africa, where we see that Namibia also is joining India-led initiatives, and Namibia is also going to adopt our payment system, the UPI payment system, and by the end of this year, this is supposed to happen. So both the statements over here are correct, and the correct answer would be option C, both 1 and 2. Question number 8. Consider the following statements regarding Sohrai art. 1. It originated among the tribal communities of Jharkhand. 2. It is a ritual wall painting tradition practiced during harvest and festivals. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A. 1 only, B. 2 only, C. both 1 and 2, or D. neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question. Done? So what is Sohrai art? Sohrai art is an art that is practiced by the tribal communities of Jharkhand, and it gained national recognition at the Kala Utsav of 2025. That's why this was in news. And this is practiced by the tribal communities of Jharkhand, more specifically by the women of the tribal communities of Jharkhand, where they do wall paintings. So women of tribal communities, they do wall paintings, and they do so during harvest and festival season. Whenever there's a harvest season, whenever there's a festival season, it's actually a mark of celebration. So they do these ritualistic wall paintings. Women do this traditionally, and this is practiced during harvest and festivals. It's a tribal community art of Jharkhand. So statement 1 is also correct and statement 2 is also correct. So both the statements over here are correct. Option C, both 1 and 2. Moving on to question number 9. Consider the following statements regarding heavy water used in India's nuclear reactors. Heavy water is used both as a coolant and as a moderator in pressurized heavy water reactors. 2. Heavy water contains tritium, a radioactive isotope of hydrogen, instead of normal hydrogen. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, or D, neither 1 nor 2. Please attempt this question. Okay, so this is about heavy water. Heavy water is D2O, which is deuterium. Deuterium. The D stands for deuterium over here. Normal water is H2O and heavy water is D2O. Now, why was this in news? This was in news because India is building its first privately owned heavy water upgrade facility. Heavy water upgrade facility. Now let's first understand what is heavy water, where is it used, and why do we need to upgrade it. So what is heavy water? Heavy water is D2O. Normal water is H2O. Heavy water is D2O. So instead of hydrogen, heavy water contains what? It contains deuterium. It contains deuterium. And this hydrogen, if we talk about hydrogen, hydrogen has 1 proton, but deuterium has 1 proton plus 1 neutron also. It has an additional neutron, 1 proton and 1 neutron. That is why it becomes heavier than normal hydrogen or than the normal water. So it's heavier and it reacts slightly differently. It behaves slightly differently in comparison to normal water. And where is this used? So it is used as a coolant and as a moderator in the pressurized heavy water reactors. So in these heavy water reactors, this is used both as a coolant to bring down the temperature and as a moderator also to slow down the fast moving neutrons, because we want to build a chain reaction. So this cannot be achieved by very fast moving neutrons. So for that they have to be slowed down, and there the role of moderator comes into play. And this moderator is actually our heavy water. So it's very important in the nuclear reactors, right? And India has a nuclear capacity, a nuclear power generation goal, overall power generation goal also. So that's why it's very important. Deuterium is very important for us, or heavy water is very important for us. But what happens is that over time they start getting diluted, or they start getting degraded. So they have to be upgraded. That is what the entire upgradation facility is. That they will be they will be put together in a manner where this degradation will be done away with. So they'll be reformed in a way into a better condition. They'll be upgraded basically. So this is happening at India's first private facility, other than, like before that, only BARC used to take care of these things. But now TEMA along with the Bhabha Atomic Institute is actually going to take care or build this private facility. So that's why this has been in news. But for us, heavy water becomes important. Heavy water, the use of heavy water, and how and when it starts getting degraded. So the first statement says it is being used as both a coolant and moderator in pressurized heavy water reactors. Yes, this statement is correct. The second statement says heavy water contains tritium, a radioactive isotope of hydrogen instead of normal hydrogen. So no, the statement is not correct. Heavy water contains what? It contains deuterium. Instead of tritium, it contains deuterium. So both this statement is incorrect, and the correct answer would be option A, 1 only. So this is the first private test facility for heavy water upgradation established by TEMA India, and this is being built along with the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Okay. Now moving on to the last question for today, question number 10. The term catastrophe bond, often heard in the news, refers to which of the following? A. A government bond issued to finance post-disaster reconstruction projects. B. A development bond floated by multilateral institutions for climate adaptation in developing countries. C. A reinsurance agreement between two or more sovereign governments to share climate-related risks. Or D. An insurance-linked security that transfers disaster risk from the issuer to financial investors. Please attempt this question. Okay, so catastrophe bond or cat bond. This is actually a term that has been in news because it's an insurance-linked security that transfers disaster risk from the issuer to the financial investors. Meaning that this is actually used by countries as a financial instrument to basically do away with the risk of natural disasters, or to mitigate the risk of natural disasters. Now what happens when a natural disaster happens, earthquake, flood, anything happens, tsunami, anything happens, then it puts the country at a very huge risk, a huge financial risk, a lot of budget stress, right? A lot of budget stress is imposed on the country because now the country has to deal with that disaster. It has to come up with all these plans. So there's a lot of budget stress. There's a lot of financial stress and it's a sudden thing. It's a huge event that happens very suddenly. So the countries, they feel very, they feel very much under pressure. So that is why they issue such financial instruments. These instruments, it's actually a security instrument that is issued through the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank. So these are actually intermediaries. Okay. Intermediaries. So countries issue this to World Bank or Asian Development Banks, and then the investors, they invest in it. They invest in this bond. So these investors, why will they invest in this bond? Because there is going to be a very high interest rate, because the risk is very high. Let's say if something goes wrong and a natural disaster actually happens, then the investor is going to lose all the money, because that money is going to now take care of all the rehabilitation, all the evacuation, everything post-disaster, taking care of all the post-disaster stuff. So instead of the countries doing so, now these investors' money is going to be into play. But if the natural disaster does not happen, because there is a fair chance of a disaster happening and a disaster not happening. So if the disaster does not happen, then what will be the case? So in that case, these investors are going to get a huge premium. They'll get a very high interest rate because their risk was very high. They took a very high risk. Correct. So these bonds, these catastrophe bonds, they offer a very high interest rate. And if a natural disaster happens, these are issued by countries to basically mitigate their financial stress in times of natural disaster. And if a natural disaster happens, then the investors are going to lose their money. But if it does not happen, then the investors are going to get a huge amount of interest. Okay, so it's an insurance-linked security that transfers disaster risk from the issuer to the financial investors. Issuer, in this case, the countries. So it transfers this risk from the countries to the financial investors. Okay, so those were the 10 questions for today. Now we'll look at a practice question for prelims. With reference to the recognition of the Taliban government in Afghanistan, consider the following countries. 1. Russia, 2. China, 3. UAE, and 4. Pakistan. How many of the above have formally recognized the Taliban government in Afghanistan? A. Only 1, B. Only 2, C. Only 3, or D. All the 4. Please attempt this question and provide your answers in the comment section. Thank you for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe. And do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.